and welcome to Big House Town TV. I'm Georgia Cook, and today I'm going to be interviewing Academy Manager Simon Ward. So, Simon, how have you been during lockdown?
Yeah, not bad. Yourself?
I've been all right, thank you. So, I'd just first like to ask, how's the academy looking in terms of progression to the first team?
At Big House, we've got a good, rich history of clear pathways for youth footballers. Three prime examples of that: Kurt Harris, obviously club captain, Tom Haig, who both came to us at 16. I've had the pleasure of coaching both of them. And not many people know as well, our programme tutor for the academy is actually Isaac Baldwin, who played for our under-21s with Kurt and Tom in the same team. So the lads are actually getting educated by somebody who's been through our ranks at Big House. As for the programme, overall, it started in 2014, and there have been 63 students progress to the first teams, so which is obviously a good number in 6 years' time. Our club's contributed to that stat within our first season, with Jamie White progressing to the first team to back up Jordan Porter last season. Bill's open to utilising our young players, which is evidence of that. I think what's crucial as well, we've got a patient committee and fans, which is absolutely crucial to developing young players on the pitch. But I think the pathways are clear in black and white, really, for everybody to see.
Yeah, I mean, what you've just said is absolutely amazing within the statistics side of things. Do you believe that the academy have got players who, once the programme has ended, have got the potential to move up to the first team?
I think we've definitely got potential first team players, yeah, definitely. But I just want to make a point of explaining the academy isn't just about promoting players. There are other aspects to it, which people outside of the academy sometimes forget. There were three main ones for me, which is the football aspect, which we're speaking about now, which is obviously a big plus of getting players through the club and into the first team. And that's what we'll be judged on, essentially. But there's also a financial side, which obviously is good for a club our size, of having an academy that brings in revenue for the club. But the main thing for me is the people side. We're actually, I mean, the best stat for me this season is that we're putting 24 young people through education. And that, for a club our size, is absolutely outstanding, I think, especially in the current climate. As you know, in lockdowns and things like that, it's hard to get jobs and everything like that. So we're actually looking after these kids and hopefully giving them a good future. And that's the most important thing to me. I know Bill and James might have a word for me about that, because obviously they look at the football side and the financial side. But for me, I think the people side, it gets missed a lot when talking about academies.
Yeah, because obviously... No, carry on, sorry.
The stats that come out are obviously the people that have got into the first team. It's never, oh, well, we helped so many young players to go on to get a good job in life, for example, which I think is really important to call out.
I mean, that must be nice knowing that you get to speak to people who might only do footballers, something to take their mind off things, of being there to support them with something like that. So for people who want to join the academy, what do you think that Big House have to offer them?
I always say three things to new players. So what you'll get from the coaching programme, and the main things is you'll develop as a footballer and a person, like I've just touched on. The other thing is that you'll get the education, which I've also touched on. But you also get first team insight. So I never promise that a player will get into the first team. I never say that in the first session that we do. What I say is that I'll give you first team insight. So I've been lucky enough to work with Paul Quinn at the club and now Bill Powell at the club, when I've actually been in the first team dressing room as a coach. So I know what it will take, or what Bill expects from his players for our young lads. So we might do, I'll give you an example, we might do fitness sessions where it's just complete running and we absolutely hammer them. Now, normally in academies, what happens is it's more with the football, and it's more nice, and it's less running, it's less aggressive running, should I say. But we do those sessions to get them ready, because if they go up to the first team session, which they regularly do throughout the season, they don't get a shock. Obviously, it's not quite the same tempo, because the first teams were bigger and physical players, but that's something we really do focus on to give them that insight into. We also do the joint training sessions, which gives them first-hand experience of actually seeing what the players are like, and how quick it is and how physical it is, which is a big thing for academies for first team football, the physicality and the speed of it.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with everything that you've just said. How has running the academy changed you as a person?
How has it changed me as a person? It's a good question, that.
Thank you.
Believe it or not, I had more hair before I started the academy. Whether you believe that, I don't know. But I think as a person, I'm not sure. You probably have to ask my wife, to be honest. As a coach, it's brought me on leaps and bounds as a coach. It's the first time I've actually had to plan a syllabus throughout the year of what we're doing. So in possession topics, out of possession topics, whereas previously we had one session a week for an hour with the 21s or the first team, 2 sessions. It's a lot more about the opposition you've got on the Saturday, whereas now I can actually work through a programme of football of what we actually want the lads to play like. And again, that does link in with how the first team play, where we can introduce certain things to some extent. So it's probably brought me on in terms of that. I'd say balance as well, where I've had to balance the side of, yes, they are having an education, they are progressing as footballers and people, the financial aspect, you've got to balance all those in terms of what's the priorities, because I think it's right bang down the middle with all 3 of them. So it's very difficult to actually do that and make sure my focus is on all of those, because we do have to get the numbers in, we do have to get first team footballers, and we do have to get them an education and progress them as people.
Yeah. So what do you think that Brighouse Academy has to offer that perhaps other clubs don't?
I think I've touched on it already with the 3 aspects, really. I'm not going to name names, and I don't want to slag any other academies off, because that's not my style. But I think some of them do just look at the numbers and the financial aspect, and they forget about the footballers progressing to the first team, and they forget about the actual people that are there and the experience that they have, because it's not just the 2-year program, the education that we're giving 24 lads. It's the experience of hopefully 2 of the best years of their lives at college. So we're trying to give them that enjoyment and the excitement through football, obviously. But that's the thing that we try to give them. Whereas I'm not sure. Hopefully most do, but I think some academies just look at the financial aspect of it and get the numbers in the door. They'll get more than that at Brighouse.
Must be nice for them to know that they're not just a number like they are at, quite a lot of academies, especially higher up, that I've seen that they just do get tracked, like another number. They're not, TLC isn't there for especially the younger ones who need it, as part of them developing. So what are the goals for this season for when football is allowed to be returned?
We're still training at the moment, so we haven't really thought about when it would come back, because we're still training, we're still doing the same things we would do, just without the games. And that's on the Mondays and Tuesdays we're doing the syllabus, and then Wednesdays we're having a bit of a laugh with it, with the competitions and 11v11s and 5-a-sides and stuff like that. So obviously legally we're allowed to train because of the education side. So it's been fantastic to keep going. We're quite lucky, to be fair. I know so many people that are frustrated that they're not coaching or not playing like the first team, and feel really lucky that we're allowed to carry on. In terms of season, it's tough to predict. We've had two close games really, especially against Ossett. It was a disappointing one where we lost the first game, and it was one of them. If you score your chances, you get a draw, but we didn't. And then the Mossley, if we put it to bed, then we get more than a draw. So we're not really in a position to look any higher than the next place above us. So that's the aim, really, win the next game.
I suppose it must be a little bit frustrating, though, knowing that you have that chance and it's not always, like you said, put to bed, you get the draw, and not being able to do that must be frustrating sometimes. Yeah,
definitely. But we talk a lot about game management and stuff like that, because they'll need that if they go to the first team. And I always think we were 2-0 up at Mosley, and I always think 2-0 is a funny scoreline, because if the opposition score the next goal, they get the impetus then, and they carry on progressing through the game to looking to get that second goal. Whereas we're under the cosh when we do concede that goal. So I mean, it's one of them. How do you approach it? Do you soak up the pressure and counter attack, or do you go get the third goal? So that's a difficulty in coaching. You've got to decide in that moment whether you do leave yourselves open to the counter attack by going and getting that third one. I mean, my team, Man United, were brilliant at that. They used to get the second, they get the third, they get the fourth, get the fifth. Not so much anymore. But I can see Damo looking at me.
I mean, Huddersfield have never experienced that, so I couldn't compare. I don't know what that was like. But do you think that there's spaces in the first team for academy players to play week in, week out, or do you think that there's a chance that they could play every so often?
It's a difficult one at the moment, because the best time to put a youth player in, I believe, is the county cups, which is no disrespect to the county cups, but we're one of the highest teams up the ladder in terms of West Yorkshire, West Riding County Cup. So in the past, generally, we've seen youth players playing in that cup, but that's obviously not been on because of COVID this year, because they cancelled it. So the flip side of that is, does Ville want to throw in a 16-year-old he's not sure about at the moment, where we're obviously down at the bottom trying to pick up points and trying to progress up the league? It's a balancing act. You've got to be 100% sure that their player is ready for it, and we don't know that in the current state of how the world is and how football is, because we've not had a chance to blood them in to senior games. Some of my lads have never ever played a senior football game, so we do have the belief in them, and we do have the belief in the ability, but it's that balancing act of when do you throw them in? Do you just trust them to go out and play? Sometimes yes you can do that. It's a physicality thing as well. I think a lot of my 16-year-olds are obviously a lot smaller in terms of how they're built, which will come in time as it does. So there were so many factors with that. So I don't want to say yes, 100% there is space for them to come in, because we've got to look after them as well. If we throw them straight in when they're not ready, then it's a difficult one.
Well, some of them who haven't even fully grown yet, coming up against, I don't know, like, say, people like Kurt, who are, I don't know, about 6'2", if not taller, it might be a little bit daunting for them as well, just chucking them in, when, like you said, they might not even be ready yet. But if you could offer a piece of advice to them, to help them with the development in the academy, what would it be and why?
I think there were two main bits, really. I think we just touched on it. they need to play senior football. I mean, as a 16-year-old, one of the best things to do is play alongside men and get kicked a bit. To be honest, we do wrap them in cotton wool these days and try and protect them, and it's all possession based, and you never get tackled, you never get pushed off the ball, you don't play against men who are experienced in the arts of the game, and by that I mean getting your body in the way and shielding and stuff like that, nudging them out of the way when the ref's not looking, the mind games, things like that.
Yeah.
So one of the best things they'll pick up is playing Saturday League or higher if they can, and playing against senior experienced players.
But do you think that could... Sorry, I was just going to say, but do you think that could happen if they were put for maybe, the County Cup next year? If they were put in the first team, it would help them get like a ground level for what it's like to be in the first team. And then if they can prove themselves, then, there might be a chance for them to maybe start as sub, but work their way into the team.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the way we tend to look at it. The academy actually enters the Halifax FA Cup. Whether that's happening this year again, we're not sure. But that's a senior cup where I play the 16 to 18-year-olds against senior experienced players. It's Saturday League, but there are some good players in it. There's some good teams in it. There are some really good amateur teams. So it's things like that we need to carry on for us to be able to develop them. And like I said, the County Cup was a massive one for me because we always got players into it. So they just need to keep going. The biggest thing for me is belief in themselves. I think you can go a long way with work rate and determination. I think I always speak to my players about certain players, try to relate it to professionals. And I think obviously our mate Gary Neville from Man United, he always says that he got in to Man United and created a career based on work rate and working hard. He had to work 10 times harder than people like Paul Scholes, who was just a genius. So it's one of them. Make sure they work hard and make sure they believe in themselves, and they'll get there.
For some, who are just naturally like amazing at stuff, like Paul Scholes, but for people like Gary Neville who, had to work a little bit harder, it must be slightly frustrating, which might be what's happening in the academy. There might be one standout player and another player's trying to work to be like that, but that might always not be the case.
Yeah, they do have to have talent to make it, but it won't go anywhere without the work rate. So they've got to have both in abundance, really. Obviously, Gary, I think we're doing him a little disservice that it does have a lot of ability as well.
Oh, yeah, no. Further than I've ever got, so, I'm no one to say anything, But no, thank you for taking the time out to talk to us tonight. Yeah, but like I said, thank you for talking to us.